cover. Make sure everything is straight before I start doing this. So, for those of you who are catching this now, thank you for tuning in. If you missed this, you can catch it on the replay. So, I've been seeing in my news feeds, and I knew that this interview was coming up, and one of my followers, they were like, yeah, check out the Fox interview, right? And like my brain is actually kind of exhausted from looking at either one of these candidates in interview, but I indulge myself sometimes. It's like a guilty pleasure. I don't watch TV, so it's like we might as well follow the chaos. And so I'm looking at this interview between Kamala Harris and Bret Baier on Fox News. Now, I've been looking at some of the feedback, and before I could even watch the interview, I was kind of looking at some feedback from the interview. People from The View are not very happy. They're feeling like he kind of came at her very misogynistically, right? The Democrats are using that misogyny narrative, right? Because you're dealing with a woman, obviously running for president, and obviously that's a great victim card to use. So I'm looking at this interview, and before I saw it, I was just kind of looking at different commentary about the interview. So obviously, on the Democratic side, they felt like he was being hostile towards Kamala Harris. He was being aggressive, right? Um, but then I was able to look at Bret Baier talking with some of his co-hosts on Fox about this interview, and apparently there was some flip flopping going on, just getting the interview going. Her team didn't want her talking for too long, which I really don't blame them. I really don't blame them. It's like, I know that people want this long, drawn out interview just so she can be shamed, but it's like nobody wants to hear all of that. So, no, the 20-minute interview that they settled on was actually satisfying to me because I don't think I would want to hear her go any longer than that, to be honest. And I don't think she should, because every time she does an interview, the polls just kind of seem to go off of her favor. So it's just better for her to limit the amount of time she does on these interviews. I will say that her interview, her vibe with Bret Baier was significantly different than her interview with Charlemagne. Obviously, she was more comfortable with Charlemagne, and I will say that it's different when you were being teed up, right? Charlemagne pretty much teed her up, gave her a lot of layups in that interview, so that was a really chill, relaxed interview for her. I think that was probably the most organic Kamala Harris we were probably going to get because she was in a very relaxed setting. Obviously, Black people make her feel comfortable. So that's I would say that's why you saw that comfort level with the Charlemagne interview. With this Bret Baier interview, it was very obvious that she was not very crazy about doing it. And according to Bret Baier, I guess they were flip-flopping on the time, and she came about 15 minutes late to this interview. She was 40 seconds late to the Charlemagne interview. She was 15 minutes late to this Bret Baier interview. So she's really proving like Charlemagne gave her Black people credit for being late. So she was just kind of staying in with the theme of being late to this Fox interview. I don't think Bret Baier was very happy about that because apparently they were in a crunch to kind of get all this stuff packaged for the public. But anyways, they get into this interview. Now, I'm going to be honest. Bret Baier did not really come in with really nice formalities at all. He came right in, and he came right in with one of the most pressurized issues that is concerning Americans today, which is the border, right? He came out swinging, all right? And I think the point in which, and because I keep seeing people show this clip of Kamala Harris, trying to kind of filibuster this answer, give him a word salad. And I don't think Bret Baier was there for her word salads. I think he knew she was going to do it. And so I think he came in being very prepared with the fact that she will filibuster and word salad all around an answer, but she won't give you really a direct, clear answer. So starting off, she's going to want to filibuster, right? A very straightforward question.
You know, voters tell pollsters all over the country and here in Pennsylvania that immigration is one of the key issues that they're looking at this election, and specifically the influx of illegal immigrants from more than 100
And this is just fair usage.
How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but just a number. Do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
So he's just really just cut and dry. He's like, I just need a number, right? I don't want the word salads. I just really want a number. How many people do you think you guys have released? Your administration has released. Kamala doesn't want to talk about the numbers, right? She was like, let's just cut to the chase. Yes, we have an immigration problem, and we had an immigration bill that Trump tried to stop. Even though he wasn't an elected official, Trump was still able to stop the bill. And I believe, the Democrats pretty much had control. So I don't understand why they weren't supporting their own party, right? What's going on, Democrats? Why didn't that bill go through?
Point. Okay, the point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished. We have an
It's a rough
immigration
estimate of
system.
6 million.
See, and this is what Kamala Harris does, right? It's like you ask her a question and it's like, we know what the problem is. We don't need you to reiterate this problem. I just asked you a question about the damn problem. Let's get straight to the answer. So she's like, we have a broken immigration system. We already know this, right? It's like asking her about, inflation. And all she'll do is tell you what inflation is and how it impacts people, right? But they don't really get to the root cause of what caused the inflation and how we can avoid getting into this situation in the future. They don't do that. This is word salad after word salad.
That have been released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get to the question, I promise you.
I was beginning to answer.
And when you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead...
Which I don't understand that, right? And I guess, it doesn't make any sense why they're releasing illegal immigrants, right? They're illegals, right? So they came into this country breaking the law. Why are we releasing these people? I don't really understand that.
Included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So, looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the Chips and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the...
So now she's going to introduce this U.S. Citizens bill or whatever. And what Bret Baier is saying is that wasn't anything to address the border. This was a pathway to citizenship bill that they were talking about. It wasn't talking about, to me, it was really them trying to figure out how we're going to pathway all of these human liabilities into being U.S. citizens so that we can get our voter base going. Like, I mean, come on now. Like, this don't make any sense. Like, what was it called? U.S. Citizens Act. U.S. Citizens Act, right? It wasn't the U.S. Border Control Act. It was the U.S. Citizens Act. So they were focused on pathwaying these human liabilities into being U.S. citizens. They're trying to expedite that. They're not worried about securing the border.
Yes,
May
ma'am.
I finish responding, please?
What's up, Info Warrior? I see you.
In the House and the Senate,
I'm
and they
in the
didn't
middle
bring up
of
that bill.
responding to the point you're raising,
Okay.
and I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
So she's just the filibustering her ass off. And here's the thing, you can't say that Bret Baier is being misogynistic when she's not even answering very direct questions. She want to go all around the merry-go-round just to get to the word the, or just to get to a number, right? Like, what did he say? 6 million people were released, right? That were apprehended, they were released. That means that we have them detained and they were released. Why? Because of apparently the reversal of Trump's remain in Mexico policies. Apparently that was xenophobic. Let me get through this commercial. This stuff gives me a headache sometimes.
We recognized from day one that to the point of this being your first question.
And you know what? And honestly, I remember the rhetoric of the Democrats when they first came in. It was not rhetoric saying, hey, stay where you are, don't come to the US. It was like, we are open. And anybody who they tried to shame people, make them like, you're anti-immigration. It's like, no, it's not the fact that we're anti-immigration. We're anti-illegal immigration. But they tried to shame people for that. They be shaming people for everything these days. Just not playing ball with their nonsense.
And our focus has been on fixing a problem
that you created and enabled with your rhetoric and your policies and your Alejandro Mayorkas.
Getting more judges, what we needed to do to tighten up penalties and increase penalties for illegal crossings, what we needed to do to deal with points of entry between border entry points. That's the work we did, and we worked on supporting what was a bipartisan.
So basically they did all that. She's saying they did all that and nothing worked because these people still got into this nation in droves. Y'all did all of that, but it didn't work because we still got this influx of human liabilities that have come into this nation in droves. Some of them aided and abetted.
Partisan effort, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, to actually strengthen the border. That border bill would have...
I can't even hear her lie about the border anymore.
6 Democrats voted against that bill.
Learned about that bill and told them to kill it because he preferred to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And in this election, this is rightly a discussion that the American people want to have. And what they want are solutions, and they want a president of the United States who's not playing political.
I don't understand why she's acting like she's never been close to the White House before.
But more importantly, back to the original
It's like
premise.
she's never been there.
Jocelyn Nungari, Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, they are young women who were brutally assaulted and killed by some of the men who were released at the beginning of the administration, well before a negotiated bipartisan bill. Former President Clinton actually referred to Laken Riley Sunday campaigning for you in Georgia, saying if those men had been properly vetted, Laken Riley probably would not have been killed. So if it wouldn't have happened, this is well before any negotiation. This is well before Donald Trump got involved in the politics. This is a specific policy decision by your administration to release these men into the country. So what I'm saying to you, do you owe those families an apology?
Let me just say.
That was a heavy question. See, this is why, I mean, y'all can call this dude racist all you want to, but we do need tough questions like this. All right? Charlemagne was not giving her these. She wasn't, he was not holding her accountable for how these policies under Biden Harris impacted people. Like, I'm gonna go back to that because he's talking about these board. He stayed on the border. Like, damn, we're like 4.5 minutes into this interview, and he's still drilling her ass about the border, because this is what people care about. This is what black voters care about. This is what white voters, Asian voters, everybody cares about this. Even the Mexican brothers and sisters in the nation who are legal are like, oh hell no. Nah. Do you know what my family had to go through to get over here, and y'all just free for alling it like this? How much money we spent, how much time we waited to just get that green card, and y'all just pathwaying people? Get out of here with that. It's an insult.
The original premise.
It's an insult to the people who did it right.
Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, they are young women.
Because let me tell you, if you're doing it right, we wouldn't have a Lakeland Riley, right? Lakeland Riley would still be alive, right? Because if we would have vetted these people, if we would have had an immigration system that actually worked like it used to, because once upon a time, you couldn't just come up in the United States like that. You just really couldn't. Like, I don't remember a time with me growing up where we were just droves of immigrants. So we did have a vetting process that was pretty rigorous, and we abandoned it because obviously these political parties can't count on Americans. So now they're trying to naturalize a bunch of non-Americans to do whatever.
Who were brutally assaulted and killed by some of the men who were released at the beginning of the administration, well before a negotiated bipartisan bill. Former President Clinton actually referred to Laken Riley Sunday campaigning for you in Georgia, saying if those men had been properly vetted, Laken Riley probably would not have been killed. So if it wouldn't have happened, this is well before any negotiation. This is well before Donald Trump got involved in the politics. This is a specific policy decision by your administration to release these men into the country. So what I'm saying to you, do you owe
Bret,
those families an apology?
Let me just say, first of all, those are tragic cases. There's no question about that. There's no question about that. And I can't imagine the pain that the families of those victims have experienced for a loss that should not have occurred.
Because y'all should have closed the damn border, and y'all should have been vetting them people.
It's also true that if a border security had actually been passed 9 months ago, it would be 9 months that we would have had more border agents at the border, more support for
so now it's Donald Trump's fault. I can hear it coming.
Trying to hold it all together,
Madam Vice President,
to ensure that no future harm would occur. And this election in 20 days will determine whether we have a president of the United States who actually cares more about fixing a problem, even if it is not to their political advantage in an election, because there was a solution, Bret.
Madam Vice President, it was a policy decision in the early part of your administration. I will let one of the mothers talk about it. Take a listen.
Like, in your
Because
face.
of the Biden-Harris administration open border policies catch and release, they were enrolled in the Alternatives to Detention program. This meant that they were released into the United States. It was not even a full 3 weeks later that they would take my daughter, Jocelyn Nungare's life. I believe the Biden-Harris administration open border policies are responsible for the death of my daughter.
That's the early days. So do you?
So, I mean, and to his point, he's saying before any type of involvement that you're saying that Trump could have been in to usurp any bill that you guys have passed, your early policies is what caused this. What she's trying to do is walk back and just be like, look, what we did was terrible. I know. But what we were trying to do was going to avoid future incidences. And it's like, nah, homie, you got to account for what happened in the past. Because we got dead Americans on your watch because of your policies. That's basically what I'm hearing from Bret Baier. It's like, stop trying to walk back, talk about all this future stuff and we're going to avoid it. It's like, bro, your initial policies is why these young ladies are gone.
An apology is what I'm
I
saying.
will tell you that I am so sorry for her loss. I am so sorry for her loss.
She's sorry for her loss. We all are.
But let's talk about what is happening right now with an individual who does not want to participate in solutions. Let's talk about
So she got to deflect it onto Donald Trump, okay? Like, that was a very pressurized question. And I don't know if her team was prepared for her to be able to be drilled on the border like that, in that manner, but she was not prepared. She was not prepared to go in like that. And this is how you know that all those little softball interviews that she was doing with Charlemagne, all the smoke, bro, these are those real questions that people care about, because the consequences to the Biden-Harris policies have led to people dying.
that as well.
But do you want to answer
in all
her?
fairness, I told you, I feel awful for what she and her family have experienced.
During that time, you said repeatedly that the border was secure. When in your mind did it start becoming a crisis?
I think we've had a broken immigration system transcending, by the way, Donald Trump's administration, even before. Let's all be honest about that. I have no pride in saying that
this was perplexing to me, because you are the sitting vice president. Maybe you weren't the border czar. Now that the liberal media are saying that she wasn't the border czar, I remember them calling her a border czar. I remember liberal media outlets saying that, like propping her up, because it was like a token, like, look, she's going to save the border, right? And then nothing kind of czarred up from there. But, I feel like she is divorcing herself of accountability from the earlier policies and the earlier rhetoric of the Democrats when it came to the border. And it's very perplexing for me for her to say that even before Donald Trump, we had a border crisis, and yet you guys would come in swinging with border policies like you had. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. So you're sitting up here acknowledging that well before Donald Trump, there was a problem at the border, and you guys came in and just damn near escalated the problem. Like, I mean, and when you're talking about leveraging problems for political brownie points, I don't even understand how this particular problem could be really leverageable, because it's so dangerous with the outcome. I don't get
When in
it.
your mind did it start becoming a crisis?
I think we've had a broken immigration system transcending, by the way, Donald Trump's administration, even before. Let's all be honest about that. I have no pride in saying that this is a perfect immigration system. I've been clear, I think we all are, that it needs to be fixed.
So that means Mayorkas
I was
came
just down
in
at the
knowing
border,
that the
talking with
immigration
border
system
agents,
was messed
and they will
up.
tell you, and I'm sure you
And he didn't do
probably- I
nothing
know you
about it.
investigate, and you are a serious journalist. They will tell you, we need more judges. We need to process those cases faster. We need the support for those cases that should be prosecuted. They need more resources, and Congress ultimately is the only place that's going to get fixed, Bret.
Well,
that's how this system works.
That's the premise of this question.
But
There were
that's how the
90
system
plus
works.
executive orders that were rescinded in the first days. Many of those were Trump border policies. I'm not going to stay here because there's other things to talk about, but you frequently talk to the Border Patrol Union for support of that bipartisan bill, and they did. They supported it. But they also just endorsed Donald Trump and said, you've been, quote, a failure with border security. Why do you think they said that?
I think they're frustrated, and I get it.
Okay, so it's crazy. Border Patrol Union supported the bill that was being proposed. So the one that she keeps touting and bragging about, they supported it, right? It didn't pass, right? But they're turning around and endorsing Donald Trump. and calling her a failure at the border. And I would say her and Biden, because he's still the sitting president.
They
We
want
just forget
support.
about him because he's
They
somewhere
want support,
locked in
and
a
that's what
coffin
that border
somewhere. He's
security
probably going
bill
to come
would have
out
done.
tonight.
These guys down at the border, these men and women, they're working hard. They're working around the clock. I get it.
There's a lot of people that look back at what you said in 2019 when you first ran for president. And there have been changes, and you've talked about some of them. When it comes to immigration, you supported allowing immigrants in the country illegally to apply for driver's license, to qualify for free tuition at universities, to be enrolled in free health care. Do you still support those things?
Listen, that was 5 years ago, and I'm very clear that I will follow the law. I have made that statement over and over again, and as Vice President of the United States, that's exactly what I've done, not to mention before.
If that's the case, you chose a running mate, Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, who signed those very things into state law. So do you support that?
We are very clear, and I am very clear, as is Tim Walz, that we must support and enforce federal law, and that is exactly what we will do.
So decriminalizing border crossings, like you said in 2019.
I do not believe in decriminalizing border crossings, and I've not done that as vice president. I will not do that as president.
So these are
So-
allegations that you've had.
But let's be very clear. I'm the only person who's running for president who has.
And, like I said in my other live stream too, Democratic states, they have been, with their little super PACs, pushing out these little petitions to allow illegal immigrants to get voter IDs and get state registration so that they can work, and be regular citizens. And it's like, I would never sign anything like that because I'm like, no, there's too many U.S. citizens that need every single resource that we can, leverage, if you will, because we're busy sending money overseas. I mean, you got to have something for us. So no, I don't support bringing human liabilities into the house.
Prosecuted transnational criminal organizations, from the Sinaloa cartel to the Guadalajara.
And remember, she says she's going to follow the law, because that's an interesting statement. And I want this to actually be a trigger for you guys. Anytime you hear a politician say, well, I'm just going to follow the law, right? Because they are making laws that are nonsensical. They're like, for example, there's a conversation, there's an exchange between the two of these people where they're talking about taxpayer money supporting transitions of prisoners. And it's like, what? And when he asks her about that, she's go, I'm just going to follow the law. Ma'am?
Voters, especially here in Pennsylvania, are inundated with commercials and ads. They just want it to stop because it's every commercial. But many of them add noise, but a few of them seem to break through. This particular one from the Trump campaign has gotten a lot of attention.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
Lord.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
Oh, Jesus, take the wheel. Oh my God. I don't want to hate people, but I hate some people so much. It's like, why? Why would anybody think it is even fair for any type of taxpayer money to go towards that? Like, and this, this actually brings up another conversation, really quick deflection that Tariq Nasheed was talking about earlier. And he was talking about transhumanism. And honestly, nobody's a better test dummy for some of these weirdo people like prisoners. So I can imagine that they're doing all kinds of things up in those prisons with our taxpayers' money. But again, this is absurd. Like, this is something where, like, where do we sign a petition to say, no, I don't want my money to go to that?
So are you
Like,
still in
I
support
hope
of
these
using
people go to
taxpayer
hell
dollars
with
to help
gasoline on their
prisoners detaining
drawers.
illegal aliens to
Just douse
transition
them with
to another
gasoline before you send
I
their
will
asses
follow
up
the
there,
law.
down
And
there,
it's a law
wherever
that Donald
there.
Trump
Just
actually
burn
followed.
their asses up.
You're
Weirdos.
probably
Just
familiar
weirdos.
with, now it's a public report, that under Donald Trump's administration, these surgeries were available to on
So,
medical-
you know, and so this particular answer to me, I want to go back because I was venting a little bit because I was doing some silent prayers and some rebuking. I don't know what I was just doing, but I was just like, ew. But
So are you still in support of using taxpayer dollars to help prison inmates or detained illegal aliens to transition to another gender?
I will follow the law.
I will follow the
And
law.
it's a law that Donald Trump actually followed. You're probably familiar with, now it's a public report.
So what she's saying is, well, Donald Trump did it, so I'm going to do it. Like, if you recall, Donald Trump followed this law, so I'm going to follow this law too, right? So you have zero autonomy, is what you're telling us. Like, you're just kind of going along to get along. So if Trump did something stupid, you're like, well, Trump did it, so remember, Trump did it, so it's okay for me to do it.
That under Donald Trump's administration, these surgeries were available to, on a medical necessity basis, to people in the federal prison system. And I think, frankly, that ad from the Trump campaign is a little bit of like throwing, stones when you're living in a glass house.
The Trump aides say that he never advocated for that prison policy and no gender transition
Well,
surgeries
you know what? You got to
happened
take
during
responsible for what
his
happened in your
presidency.
administration.
Yeah, no surgeries happened in this presidency.
It's in black and white.
Would you still advocate for using taxpayer dollars for gender reassignment
I will
surgeries?
follow the law, just as I
you have a
think
say
Donald
in
Trump.
I'm pretty sure that stuff has been going on since Obama, because he was like the fire starter of all the, alphabet stuff anyways. So I'm pretty sure it was just something probably Trump, it was there. I don't even probably, that's such a small fry item, right? That I don't think that would have probably even been on Trump's radar. But Bret is saying that his aide said those aren't things that Trump was supporting or advocating for. You were actually on a mic doing interviews with a man that is living as a woman, talking about how you are advocating for, these transitions to be available to these folks who have committed crimes in society and who are incarcerated, but yet they can have the luxury of the taxpayer monies of like cutting off their cock and balls. This is freaking weird. Like, this is really weird. This would have been a straightforward no. These people, they are rejects in society. We don't care what the hell their dysphoria is. They're in jail. They committed a crime. They're not really that important for taxpayers' money outside of making sure that they got somewhere to eat. They got somewhere to sleep that is of humane. Right? But all that other stuff, making sure that they get medical attention when they need it. But that is cosmetic surgery, in my opinion. That is cosmetic surgery. And even insurance companies aren't really paying for certain cosmetic surgeries like that. So why would taxpayers do it? Like, why would we even have an interest in doing it? What politician signed off on our money going to that? We should look at those people, right? Because there's a whole lot of money being tossed around to everything, our money, our earnings, right? And now we got all this bag of garbage that we see that is going to. Like, I do not support U.S. taxpayers' money going towards sex changes for criminals. This is like, what the hell is this? Is a banana republic. It's weird.
You would have a say.
Like clown cuckoo
Like I
land.
said, I think it's real. He spent $20 million on those ads, trying to create a sense of fear in the voters because he actually has no plan in this election.
But she didn't deny it, though. Like, I mean, my whole thing is I don't care if Trump spent $50 million on the ad. Like, when you're asked a question about the contents of the ad, it's either a yes or no. Do you support taxpayers' money going towards these things? Yes or no? Right? We don't even need to do any type of dance around the merry-go-round. She got a bunch of words in her salad, right? And she's not really straightforwardly saying, no, I backtrack that at all. She's not backtracking it. She's just saying, well, Trump enabled it too. So I didn't do anything wrong. And I'm not going to backtrack this. And she's like, now she's going to, this is a fear strategy, guys. This is just a fear strategy.
That is about focusing on the needs of the American people. Whereas,
well, I'll tell you one of my needs as an American, I'm going to need any of my earnings not to go to that bullshit. So that's one of my first needs is I'm going to need none of my American money to go towards sex changes for criminals. That is one of my needs. I'm putting it out there on the table. And if that's one of your needs too, hit the like button, subscribe to this content, help a sister out. But that's what I need. I need them to stop that.
$1 million on that ad. On an issue that, as it relates to the biggest issues that affect the American people, it's really quite remote. And again, his policy was no different. Look at where we are, though.
They say
On plans for the American
we'll
people, I'm offering a plan to deal with affordable housing. I'm offering a plan to deal with what we need to do to strengthen small businesses, which are the backbone of America's economy.
Small businesses are not the backbone of the American economy, right? They're not. And I work with small businesses. I'm going to keep it a buck. They are not the backbone of the American economy. They are very important to the American economy, but they are not the backbones of the American economy. And I'm so sick of people saying that. They're not. No stab to you as a small business owner. We love y'all. We love y'all. Support small businesses. But y'all not the backbone. And I'm going to keep it all the way 100 with y'all. Y'all not the backbone of the American economy. Not even close. And that housing BS, that $25,000, she better be really freaking and really doing. Somebody better be sleeping with somebody on Wall Street to get those types of down payments on houses, $25,000, because we're $35 trillion in debt. We ain't got it. So I can have a plan to do a lot of stuff that's not viable. Do you people get it? What I'm saying? People keep talking about their plan, but is your plan viable? How are you going to put your plan in motion? Where the hell is this money going to come from when we're looking at $35 trillion in debt? I don't understand why subsidies would even be on the table. It's not intelligent. It's just not economically intelligent. It's just not.
Offering a plan that is about taking care of young parents and giving them the support they need. My plans for the economy will strengthen the economy, as have been reviewed by 16 Nobel laureates, Goldman Sachs, Moody's, and recently the Wall Street Journal, which have all studied our plans and have indicated my plans for our economy would strengthen our economy, his would make them weaker, would ignite inflation and invite a...
I don't understand how the hell they saying that her plans will strengthen the economy when she's giving out $50,000 for this and $25,000 for that, and we're $35 trillion in debt. How are these plans working? You're talking about giving out subsidies. And no stab, again, to our small businesses, but you're talking about giving out subsidies to small businesses.
A recession by the middle of next year. Those are the facts.
Why do you think more people say they trust him on the economy than they trust you?
I think that when you look at an analysis of our plans for what we would do as President of the United States, it has been clear to those who study and understand how economic policy works, that moving forward, because I do believe.
Okay, and just FYI, it may not be like anything for anybody to know, but I am a registered financial advisor. So I know how the economy works.
The American people are ready to turn the page.
Somebody asked me,
on
was
the
I a lawyer?
divisiveness
No,
and
I couldn't afford
the
law
type of rhetoric that
school.
has come out of Donald Trump. People are ready to chart a new way forward, and they want a president who has a plan for the future and a plan that is sound and will strengthen our country. My plan for the economy does exactly that. His plan would be, again, to give tax cuts to billionaires and the biggest corporations in our country and blow up our deficit.
It's interesting.
Okay, I'll be honest with you guys, and I know this sounds like, and I am literally lower middle class people, right? I am lower middle class. This is my life, right? So I'm a normal American person. And if I had to think about if I was giving out subsidies, who would I get the greater return on investment from? Bigger corporations or smaller businesses? Bigger corporations or smaller businesses? Where would the government get the bigger ROI? All right. I'm just thinking, just as a regular, normal person, who am I going to put my money on? Who would I think is going to stimulate the economy more? It's not going to be the small businesses. It's going to be the bigger corporations, because once you stop clutching them up, hanging them up with taxes, right? They're able to do more with their capital. They're able to hire more people, right? We want our companies hiring more people, not laying them off. But if we got the government putting these companies in a chokehold, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And unfortunately, we have existed in a trickle-down economics reality, right? And unfortunately, there's no break in that reality, whether people want to or not. It just is what it is. And so I'm not, like I said, when I make my comments about small businesses, I'm not making any stabs at you. I do believe that the government should try to support small businesses as much as we can. But we do need to focus on the large cats. We do need to focus on the people who can actually employ hundreds to thousands of people at a time. Small businesses can't do that, right? So it's not really about looking out for the rich guy when you think about it, because if the rich guy can employ 10,000 poor guys and then actually get them eating and get them on some kind of pathway, skillway to sustainability, I'm going to put my money on the big corporations, all right? And this is just me, right? This is the way I think. So I don't think that Donald Trump's economic policy when it comes to tax cuts for corporations is off at all. I don't think it's off.
Interesting you said turn the page, Madam Vice President. You were asked on 2 different shows last week what, if anything, you would do differently than President Biden. Here's what you said.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be, and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I know.
And so that would be one change in terms of, but also I think it's important to say with, 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump.
So you're not Joe Biden, you're not Donald Trump, but nothing comes to mind that you would do differently?
Let me be very clear. My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency. And like every new president that comes in to office, I
So
will bring-
basically, she's saying I wasn't really riding with Biden. Okay, that's what I'm getting. She's like, it's not going, because if you were really riding with Biden and you just believed in everything the dude was doing, it would be, your presidency would definitely be a continuation of it. So she's backtracking from Biden. She is definitely walking back from Biden at this point in the campaign.
my life experiences, my professional experiences, and fresh and new ideas. I represent a new generation of leadership. I, for example, am someone who has not spent the majority of my career in Washington, D.C. I invite ideas, whether it be from the Republicans who are supporting me, who were just on stage with me minutes ago, and the business sector, and others who can contribute to the decisions that I make about, for example, my plan for increasing the supply of housing in America and bringing down the cost of housing, addressing the issue of small businesses, which is about working with the private sector to bring more capital and access to capital to our small business leaders, including my plan for a $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers and for small businesses, extending the tax deduction from $5,000 to $50,000.
We've heard a lot about those plans in recent days. Your campaign slogan is a new way forward, and it's time to turn the page. You've been vice president for 3.5 years. So what are you turning the page from?
Well, first of all, turning the page from the last decade in which we've been burdened with the kind of rhetoric coming from Donald Trump that has been designed and implemented to divide our country and have Americans literally point fingers at each other. Rhetoric and an approach to leadership that suggests that the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down instead of what we all know. The strength of leadership is based on who you lift up. The strength of an American president, which is one who understands.
This is her reoccurring speech, guys. Oh my God, I've heard this. I should have it memorized. Oh my freaking God. This Martin Luther King diatribe she does, the strength of a leader, it's not about who you tear down, it's who you build up. It's like, Jesus.
Divide our country and have Americans literally point fingers at each other. Rhetoric and an approach to leadership that suggests that the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down instead of what we all know.
Wait, and then y'all, Bret about to interrupt her during her Martin Luther King speech, and she's like, no, I got to get this all out. The earpiece is talking here because she's still wearing them damn earrings.
The strength of leadership is based on who you lift up. The strength of an
No,
American president, which is one who understands that the vast majority of us have more in common than what separates us. That is turning the page.
70% of
Bret, like, man, fuck your. He like, I don't want to hear all that. All right, I don't want to hear all that. Right? You're filibustering with that Martin Luther King stuff again. I don't want to hear all that. Right? She like, no. The earpiece says, no matter if they interrupt you, you finish your Martin Luther King speech, girl. And Kamala did that. Bret could not interrupt her. He was like, all right, thanks.
That is about turning the page on rhetoric that
she's still going, y'all.
Exhausted of Bret.
More than
People are
70% of people
exhausted.
tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president.
This is what Charlemagne should have asked her. These are the types of questions that Charlemagne should have came at Kamala Harris with, right? He should have came at her with those and made her stake the case, just like Bret is making her stake the case for, white media. He should have did that for black media, and he failed. Like, this dude is giving her the business. This dude is communicating with her like, you're about to be, or you could be, the leader of this nation. You could be the next leader of the free world, right? So why the hell would I come up in this interview softballing you? And you're currently in an administration, so you need to be accountable for the failures of your administrations. And she's not doing that. Bret is holding her accountable. Charlemagne should have been doing that, and that would have been more of a service to black people when she's doing her black media runs. But she's doing all the smoke, softball-y interview. Breakfast Club, town hall, softball-y interview. Anything she does with Democrat media is going to be softball-y. They're not going to press her, and shame on them. Shame on them. This is a person that you're talking about is going to be your leader, right? And the problem with Kamala Harris versus a Donald Trump is that people have measurements. People have measurements. They have a Trump term to measure, and they have a Biden term to measure. right? They have these two administrations to measure. And so when you ask the American people, which administration did you feel more economically secure? They're not saying Biden Harris. They're not saying that.
President. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running
And
for office.
see how she just goes back to Trump? Like, I'm asking you about you and what you've done in the last 3 years. We're not talking about Trump right now. We're talking about you and your accountabilities. And she goes and deflect right back to Trump. This is unaccountable, right? Like, this is not accountable. This is not accountable. Like, listen to this.
79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
But she said, and Donald Trump has been running from office. What? like, I'm just saying, like, what kind of answer is that? Like, what the hell kind of answer is this? Like, listen to what this man is saying to her.
That follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're
So he's asking her to be accountable to what the American people are saying about their perceptions about America under Biden and Harris. And he's asking them, why are they saying that about you? And what is she saying?
You've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam Vice
What does that have to do with the price of beans in China? I really don't understand what that response had to do with anything that man asked her. I really don't.
We both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade,
And then she's like, you both know what I'm talking, and he's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. We gonna need your ass to explain that little word salad, because now that don't even make sense as a transitionary thought, Kamala.
You're saying that. If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
and Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam
You
Vice
and I
President.
both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking
Y'all
about.
know I'm
What are you
grabbing the
talking about?
vodka
What I'm
after
talking
this.
about is that
I'm
over
doing
the
this
last
for y'all.
decade,
We going through this together.
people have
But my
become.
brain hurts.
Listen,
It really hurts
over
right
the
now.
last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with me, the former chief of staff,
Still
to the
haven't
president,
answered the question.
Donald Trump, former defense secretaries,
This
national
word salad
security
got
advisor, and his vice
jalapenos,
president. One, that he is unfit to serve,
chives,
that he is unstable, that he is
onions.
dangerous, and that people are exhausted with someone who professes to be a leader who spends full time demeaning and engaging in personal grievances and it being about him
Madam
instead
Vice
of
President,
the American people.
If
People
that's the
are
case,
tired of that.
If that's the case, why is half the country supporting him? Why is he beating you in a lot of swing states? Why, if he's as bad as you say, that half of this country is now supporting this person who could be the 47th president of the United States? Why is that happening?
This is an election for president of the United States. It's not supposed to be easy.
I know, but
It's
if
not
it's
supposed to be. It is not supposed to be a
So
cakewalk
are they misguided, the
for anyone.
50%?
Listen,
Are they
I'm-
stupid?
Oh,
What is
God,
it?
I would never say that about the American people. And in fact, if you listen to Donald Trump, if you watch any of his rallies, he's the one who tends to demean and belittle.
Okay, so she's never going to keep anything on her. She's never going to keep anything on her. She's never going to keep anything on her. I feel bad for Kamala Harris, right? Because obviously they knew they didn't have anybody, right? They looking at Biden. He's slowly cognitively declining. They just couldn't puppet him anymore. They really had to roll the dice. And I think all they had was Kamala Harris. They could sell Kamala Harris, I think, because she has that ambiguity and they could definitely lock the black vote in, and take their chances. They'll have the middle class, the moms, all the gays, they'll have all of those people, but then you have that huge conservative, demographic that she have to reach. And I don't think that they've done I think in this cycle they really should have made a big effort to try to reach the conservative Republican side with a little bit more grace, less competition, right? Because they didn't get that voter base on lock. And even down with the black vote, it's one of those things with Kamala Harris. Black men, they're not going to forget. And there, like I said, there's a certain type of black woman that I think that black men, they know this person is either on our team or they're not. Like, let me see. Like, I think that, like, let me think of just a down black chick. Give me a down chick, like just ride or die black chick. Let's just say like a Whitney Houston, right? Whitney wasn't very political, but like we knew that Whitney Houston was a rider for her people, right? Whitney Houston and Stacey Dash are not the type the same black chick, right? Most black men would trust a Whitney Houston type of black chick before they trust a Stacey Dash type of black chick. I hope this is a good comparison, but there are certain black looking women or types of women that black men are not going to trust. And Kamala Harris is actually one of those types of black women. And it doesn't really help. Like, again, like Tulsi Gabbard said, she was locking brothers up. She was locking brothers up and she wasn't even thinking about it, because I don't think deep down, like, I don't really think that, like, I don't really think that this woman hates black men. I don't think it's anything like that. I think that she gets along with them well, but I do feel like, black men for this type of woman is kind of beneath. Like, she doesn't see them with a higher esteem. And I think that that's very apparent by how you went through that whole HBCU contingency and walked out with a non-black man. So it's one of those things where Kamala Harris, she has not been sold very well. I think it was just a roll of the dice. They had nobody else. She was definitely going to do better than Biden. She was definitely a better alternative for the Democrats than Joe Biden. But she was not a good puppet. She doesn't have the charisma. She's not Obama. She doesn't have the Obama charisma. She doesn't have the Obama character. She's literally a woman and her pearl earrings, earpiece, and whatever establishment person is in her ear giving her answers, right? That's basically what it is, right? I actually saw a live dictation from a puppet, right? I was looking at the Senate, what was it, the Ways and Means Committee, right? Oh, my eyes are just running. This is how you know I'm tired, because my eyes are running. I guess I should have paid attention to the chat. Like, girl, you looking crazy. Sorry guys, my eyes, I didn't even realize. I don't look at myself at all, but I can tell I'm looking tired as hell now that I'm looking at myself. But what was I saying? I'm getting tired of this. But I was looking at the Ways and Means Committee, and they had Maxine Waters talking about capitalism, and she had made some weird comments about capitalism. And I'm just getting off from work, you guys, so it's just straight to the live stream. But what did Maxine? Well, she was saying something. I think it was Chip Roy gave her a pressurized question about some previous comments that she was saying about capitalism. She was seeming like she was going more towards socialism, and he was calling her out about her socialist like rhetoric. And obviously she got trapped up And all of a sudden you see somebody from the back come and give her a piece of paper with some stuff, and she's just reading from the paper, as herself. And I'm like, these people are being puppeted. These people are just being puppeted. Like, these are not the smartest people in the country. They're not. They're just really good at manipulating people. They really are. Like, I don't get it. On another note, I want to get away from this Bret Baier interview for a second, because I don't want to hear her talk anymore. My anxiety levels can only take so much. But there was an interesting article. What's the dude's name that was Project Veritas? James O'Keefe. Well, apparently James O'Keefe is down his rabbit holes again. And he just revealed that I guess he had some undercover guy who worked at Meta. And this guy is talking about how they are suppressing any type of negative post about Kamala Harris. This guy, in this dialogue between James O'Keefe and this guy,
Clinton. This is not
and shout out to Jeremy from the Quartering.
This has been proven on Capitol Hill.
So he is saying that, let me see, I want to go back to this guy.
Specialized weapons and tactics team that was created by Meta.
And I'm going to just let Jeremy go to town. Go ahead, Jeremy.
There's a SWAT team that's already been set up since April, just to think about scenarios of how the platform could be taken advantage of. When asked if Meta is going to do their due diligence to protect democracy from, quote, disinformation, Guy Wally ensured that it's all going to be demoted 100%.
So basically, these platforms are censoring discussions about political topics. If they are a shill or if they have a bias for a political position, they are going to censor. They are going to suppress conversations, and that's something for content creators to think about, because obviously you see a drop in your analytics, you see a drop in your content views and engagements. I've had people tell me they've had a hard time liking my stuff. They couldn't like something. So we know that this stuff is going on. And again, if you got to cheat for your candidate, they're not that strong. Your candidate isn't strong. If you got to cheat, nothing about you is strong enough, right? And that's just the bottom line. Your candidate can't win if you have to cheat. And that's just word 100, And, some would argue that suppression of public dialogue and conversation would even be a form of election interference, right? Because you're suppressing conversations from the general public. You know what I mean? And, this whole misinformation thing is really irking me, because misinformation for me is really boiling down to people with objective viewpoints or ideas about a perpetuated narrative that is contrary. Because the kings and queens of misinformation is the mainstream media. They have been caught in lies left and right all the time. That's why people don't trust them. That's why people are going to independent media outlets, because they don't trust these double talking demons who are the kings and queens of misinformation. And so for me, I think it just goes back to basic rhetoric class, right? Is this person declaring something, or are they informing you, right? Because to me, the information is, on Woodward Avenue, there's a huge car show every year in Detroit. It's called the Woodward Dream Cruise, right? That's information. That's information, right? And shout out to my Woodward Dream Cruisers. If you're a gearhead, we love you out here in Detroit. Come out to the Dream Cruise, right? Just no cruising on 8 Mile, all right? It's all on Woodward. I tell people no dream cruising on 8 Mile. But, to me, declaring something is, the Hunter laptop was real, right? I'm declaring that it was real. I'm feeling like, I'm saying a kind of a definitive statement there. The Hunter laptop is real. Hunter Biden, right? That's real. That's like a declaration, right? That's not really information, right? It could be perceived as information, but these people are tongue twisting information and opinions, right? They don't even, like, some people, they keep saying conspiracy theories, and I don't think that people really understand that a conspiracy requires more than one person. So if you're just a regular person sitting back looking at the pattern of things and you're making sense of things and you put something out there based off of the patterns that you observe, who were you conspiring with other than the brain and the information that you were putting together? You know what I mean? I'm going to drop my Substack article under this blog talking about all the colorful media, double talking speeches, right? Misinformation, disinformation. Main people crying at, they are the people who are just straight lying to the public.
You walk away from the platform when you listen.
And this was Tariq Nasheed talking about how intelligent Black conversations are being suppressed across platforms because obviously they want, Black folks on here doing the old shuck and jive and monkey dance for these idiots, supremacist folks that look beneath us, right? But they don't like when Black people really facilitate dialogue, conversations, and so they do suppress us, right? That is really kind of one of those layers of the bigoted system. Not all folks are bigots, but we gotta kind of acknowledge the ones that are. And unfortunately, some of those kind of run the show through their nepotism. But anyways, you guys, it dang gets over an hour. I never really like to stay on this long. But you guys, thank you for tuning in. You guys know I don't really be into the comments like that because there's always some little demonic troll, politically, passionately ignorant person. And I ain't got time for that. I'm just out here sharing love and information. But anyways, you guys, let me know what you guys think about this. Bret Baier did give it to her. All right. He did not softball her. And I think, every presidential candidate interview should be like this, where these people are asked hard questions and are made to be accountable for the things that they do and the things that they say. Especially with that border thing, I'm glad he emphasized that, because when you look at them babies that got killed, and there are more Americans who have been harmed by those original border policies, she needed to be accountable and provide an answer for that, and she didn't. And they deflected this whole entire interview. I found that anything that he asked her to be accountable for, she deflected it right back on Donald Trump. Right back on Donald Trump. So she's not accountable. Whoever's in her earpiece needs to work on the accountability. All right? But anyways, you guys, have a wonderful, wonderful day. I see you, Don Bell. Man, these things go to... But I see you all. Keep your prayers up. Love your neighbor. Ask yourself, if you will not disrespect or abuse your neighbor, yourself, do not disrespect and abuse your neighbor. And remember, your closest neighbor are the people in your family, so stay close to your family. All right, see you guys later. Bye. And thank you for subscribing.